Thank you for joining us for this episode of Frog Talk, an Auction Frogs podcast series all about events and fundraising in a post-2020 world. For more information on Auction Frogs and the services we offer, visit auctionfrogs.org today.
Hi, I'm Corey Michaels, and this is Frog Talk, your leap into fundraising.
Now, this is a different perspective. We've talked to a lot of nonprofits. We've talked to a lot of different groups and individuals about that pivot that happened in 2020 with the pandemic. How did last year, when this all first started coming down and events were getting canceled, what were you first thinking, and how did you make that transition?
Well, let me unpack that one. That sounds like fun to answer. Let's just reopen that wound. No, I'm kidding. Well, I remember the day specifically. I was actually in the Treasure Valley, March 12th, when my phone just started blowing up with people pretty much asking me, what are we going to do? Or let's postpone, let's cancel, all this kind of stuff. But essentially what happened was all these nonprofits and schools kind of turned to me for answers. And it was a heavy lies the crown sort of moment. Without sounding however that came off. I did my first virtual event in the last Saturday in March. Like 3 weeks later, you had all these nonprofits that sold tickets, that had sponsorship money, none of which I could really afford to refund, so they had to do something. So they pretty much said, Zack, what do we do? And I said, we got to do what we can do. That's all we can do. And that was to go virtual. And if you recall, there was that kind of Zoom like awakening where everyone realized that Zoom was a thing. And I'll be the first to admit that the first 3 virtual events I did were not worth watching. They were cool for the people that were involved with the nonprofit or the school. But for the most part, what I learned very, very quickly was that this is not about auctioneering. This is not a gala. This is a television show. And to supplant value proposition is the real name of this new game. Why does someone buy a ticket to a gala? For the dress up, for the drinks, for being a pillar of the community, being seen as a socialite, the networking, the filet mignon, the sitting at the table, clapping for your friends as they win or give or get an award. There was value in that, and plus the entertainment that came afterwards. So how do you supplant the value proposition of a live event with a virtual one? And that has been what I've been ever evolving as I answer that question going forward. And the key to it is entertainment value and what you consume through the screen, as well as what you might consume as you build in catering packages and things of that nature. So it wasn't that hard of a transition. The hardest thing was getting people to understand that. Don't put a gala on screen. No more long, boring speeches. There's no social pretense that says you can't get up and walk out. How many times have we been to a gala where someone gave a speech that was just a little long in the tooth, and you wish you could be somewhere else in that moment, or you were distracting yourself by checking the scores on your phone or whatever the case is? Well, now you can. Now the viewer can get up and walk out of the proverbial virtual room. So it's very, very important to incentivize your crowd in several ways so that they have skin in the game. One of the best parts about consuming a virtual event as opposed to just a show on Netflix is its ability to be interactive. And it's kind of following the same theory as why American Idol was more successful than Star Search, and it's because of the voting. The crowd got to vote on who won. And I'm a big fan of kind of finding the television blueprint that you want to emulate to offer value proposition, and just reinvent the wheel that Jerry Lewis invented back in the early 60s, which was a reciprocity with your audience between fundraising and entertainment value. And that is kind of the key cornerstone to a quality virtual event. What's in it for them and what's in it for you, and to be respectful of that formula, to never take liberties with their attention span. So if anything, it made fundraising much more leaner. It's definitely much more cost effective to do a virtual event compared to a live event. And as virtual events evolve, people are starting to say, hey, maybe we can do this as a drive-in event and offer some entertainment value where people are in a safe thing. I'm doing an event, I believe, in Chicago in late June or early June for special spaces where it's at this big open field and everyone's at picnic blankets and they're all spread out. But there's also a virtual hybrid component, so it's starting to evolve and grow in a natural and organic way. And people, nonprofits and schools are starting to realize, okay, I kind of have to do a virtual event because it's the new method of revenue stream. So it's not a binary decision, and that's something I want to make kind of like abundantly clear. A lot of event producers and other people in the nonprofit world are saying live or virtual, and no. It's live and virtual. You can do both now. Right now, you're going to focus on virtual because that's what you can do, and you're going to evolve this and create a good foundation and a good premise because the castle walls are low, and you can introduce a whole new generation of donors because it doesn't cost $300 to attend a virtual event, and start steeping them as they evolve and grow and mature to becoming more lifelong donors and participants. It's kind of like when you go to a church for the first time, they give you the great pew with the nice fresh donut and the big coffee, and you get showered with praise just for walking in the room. Virtual events have that for the millennial generation. And I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Nonprofits are going to have their gala when it comes back. They're going to have their golf tournament, and they're going to have their virtual event now. So congratulations. Whole new revenue stream. Let's take advantage of it.
Well, I think one of the silver linings that we did find in all the craziness of this last year is that there is that market that was missing. I think for a lot of organizations, they really appreciated the reach that they never thought they could have. So if you had alumni or fans of your organization that lived around the country, around the world, they can be a part of it. And that's not money then that is left on the table that these organizations never saw because those people could not attend your in-person event. Well, now they can, and they're excited
virtual
to be
events. Totally. These were inevitable. Virtual events were going to happen.
Yep.
COVID just expedited the process because I was working with it's called Yoga Gives Back, wonderful organization with a lot of support for people in India. And so there was people in India, there's people in the UK and people in New York that all had a tie into this. If you owned a yoga studio in Miami, you could now give and be a part of a hybrid or live or virtual event for an event that was thrown in Los Angeles. So the international fundraising market was driving the kind of slowly the evolution of virtual events, but now it's at the forefront. And so a kind of a non-regional based nonprofit that might be located in Boise, might be located in Tacoma or Coeur d'Alene or whatever, can now certainly broaden their reach, not only in terms of the age and the demographic and how millennials prefer to participate, which is usually more incentive-based, usually a little more transactional, as well as just the people who, like you said, are in a different time zone, different state, different area.
Well, and
this was going to happen.
It was, and this definitely sped up the process. But there is always going to be, as the mandates lessen, as the numbers continue to decrease and all of that, there are going to be people that are not going to be excited anytime soon about getting dressed up and going into a big room of people, whereas there's other people that are craving it and are going to jump all over it. But yeah, that hybrid is going to be so necessary. A virtual component in some way is always going to be a part of fundraising efforts.
It's the new carpool lane, or it's the new means of accommodation. That's okay, because as long as there's value proposition both to a live attendee and a virtual attendee, both will stay relevant. And that a lot of that comes into what you're putting on stage and what you're putting on screen and the sequence by which it's presented, the night of which it's being done. And it's going to, the face of live events is going to change no matter what, because there is safety precautions. I think it's going to change the seasons when fundraisers are done. You're going to see more warm, rather than March, April, May, it's going to evolve into an April, May, June, which I'm already seeing for 2021, as well as August, September, October, as opposed to September, October, November, because there's going to be more outdoor events, because people are going to be much more safe and feel much more safe sitting outside than inside. and they're going to feel much more safe at a 2-top table rather than a 10-top table if it's just them and their loved ones and friends. So, and then there's going to be that camera or roving camera crew who's going to be broadcasting this virtually. The real key, and this is what needs to get figured out, is how do you still have a value proposition in your live event when the virtual event component is prevalent? How will a nonprofit sustain a live event and still justify that $150 ticket price when someone can just say, hey, I can just attend virtually? So you do have to still offer something more in a live capacity, because I've seen this evolution. It's a Pandora's box situation. I've seen it with auction houses. I've seen it with car auctions and real estate auctions and things of that nature. As soon as you allow them to not be there in person, they will take advantage of that, even if they're missing out on the party and the drinks and the dress up. But a nonprofit can't run that risk, because it didn't cost a ticket to go to that car auction. It didn't cost a ticket to go to that real estate auction, but it cost something to go to the live event. So I've been racking my brain recently, and that's the question before all of us in the nonprofit world, is when live events come back, how do we ensure that we can still fill the room? And I think the same answer still applies, of the joy quota being met in the live event, probably more so than the virtual one, because there's going to be certain advantages to a live event attendee, whether it comes with food and drink and entertainment and the ability to bid on live auction in real time versus prior to. And there's something to be said about the live experience that I don't think is ever, there's always going to be room in a marketplace for it. The deck has just been spread wider now. For the same reasons that we like to go to church than watch a virtual sermon, or go to the movies than only watch Netflix. The job of any good nonprofit is to appeal to all aspects of human nature. And there's a human nature to congregate, to be seen. We are vain creatures. We don't like being seen. We don't like being alone on this big blue marble. But there's also human nature to stay in, have food delivered, stay in your PJs, enjoy the creature comforts of home. But it's all going to come down to age, demographics, someone's personal individual health, and how we can ensure, maybe the live event's $150 to attend and the virtual event's $100 to attend, which could then, if someone was on the fence, they would lean one way or the other. But we can't let profit margin get affected negatively just because someone doesn't feel like attending.
What are your final thoughts, advice for nonprofits on coming up with their virtual plans or their fundraising plans for 2021 and beyond? What simple advice would you give them?
We're on final thoughts already? Gosh, I got like 55 more minutes of content for you there, Corey. My bedrock advice is the worst thing you can do is nothing.
Right.
If you do nothing, you are sending the wrong message and shooting yourself in the foot in so many ways. If you do nothing, that sends the message to your donor base that we're fine or we're closed, neither of which is going to help you survive or help you provide for a community. The institutions that survive this pandemic are the ones that the community deems worthy of survival, not you as an executive director or a development director. You don't want to become Blockbuster in the Netflix world. And you need to cast that wide net possible, the widest net possible in the fundraising world. And it just got wider. And you need to expand into that virtual realm. And like I said, it's not a black and white issue. Both events have their virtues. Both events cater to a certain aspect of human nature. Therefore, that is at the core of what fundraising is all about, is human nature, to be engaged, to be connected, inspired, motivated, incentivized to fundraise. There's, the golf tournament was all about the kind of the boys club. The gala was all for the dress up in the gala, and the virtual event is all for that kind of youth and community building connections and virtual expansiveness. So take advantage of every natural inclination a human being would have and find a way to fundraise around it. That is what we need to take to heart. And nonprofits were trepidatious in 2020. Some dove right in and some were trepidatious, but now looking forward in 2021, I think they're starting to see that they're at a crossroads and something must be done. And I'm very proud to say that I've done 58 virtual events in 2020, which I don't have any sort of official count, but I know it's up there as far as what other nonprofits have done. And on top of that, it's more important to hire someone who's more comfortable in front of camera, knows how to improv, knows how to interview, knows how to be a game show host. The auctioneering skill set, I don't even like being called an auctioneer. I've always just been a professional fundraiser. And the commercial auction chant does very, very little. And it serves no purpose because it was invented to stay one step ahead of the bidders, and now you're just looking at the screen. So it's more about being able to reach through that camera and talk to people on a very human level. And you know this, when you're on a microphone or in a studio, it doesn't feel as human as you wish it was. But to be able to reach through that camera and touch someone on a personal level to either inspire, motivate, or incentivize will compel someone to give. This is the fight of a generation in a lot of ways. This for nonprofits, this is our Rosie the Riveter moment where you have to rise to the occasion and choose to become the best version of yourself in order to persevere. And I hope that people who are listening take away anything from this conversation is you need to ask yourself as a nonprofit, are you worthy of survival? Are you capable of adaptation? And do you want to grow or do you want to shrink? There's an adapt or die moment, and hopefully the answer to all three of those questions are yes.
Well, Zach, thank you so much for taking some time, brother. I sure do appreciate it. Now, how can someone follow you, social media, or contact you if they want to find out more about having you come in and make their virtual experience even better?
Nothing like ending a quality interview with wonderful nuggets of information with a shameless plug. Thank you so much.
Exactly. Got to get that shameless plug in there.
All right. Well, the name of the company is Idaho Benefit Events, which is the newest venture in the virtual auction realm. I'm Zack Krone _auctioneer on Instagram, and you can also go to ZackKrone.com. That's ZackKrone.com for all sorts of videos and promo material and other shameless acts of self-promotion. And I just encourage conversation. There's plenty of times when I have conversations with executive directors and development directors who are just in the exploratory mode. They're not looking to hire or book a date. They just need to learn. And as someone who, has kind of taken upon themselves to learn and adapt in this world, it's my obligation and pleasure to share what I've experienced in this process, whether you hire me or not. And as you know, Corey, this is all about relationships and bettering the community. And I could have been an auctioneer and sold skyscrapers and commercial auction real estate and retired at 38. I chose this kind of the same way you did. I was in media. I was in entertainment. I was an on-camera Reuters news correspondent for award shows and movie premieres. That didn't offer the same kind of joy of giving back to my community. And now I get to make a living supporting nonprofits and their efforts. And I'm very proud and honored to be doing so in the great state of Idaho.
Well, buddy,
fantastic.
Welcome to Idaho. We've got a lot of great things to come. So again, thank you, my friend.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Frog Talk, an Auction Frogs podcast series all about events and fundraising in a post-2020 world. For more information on Auction Frogs and the services we offer, visit auctionfrogs.org today.